put that to one side and now turn to Moldova, whose pro-Europe party has won a memorable victory in the country's legislative elections. President Maia Sandu had warned about the possible consequences of Russian interference in the democratic process in Moldova. But the people had their say this weekend and chose to vote for an EU destiny, a destiny already enshrined in Moldova's constitution since 2024. Well, Maia Sandu, President of Moldova, let's hear her words.
I do believe that Russia has not achieved its objectives. It has spent a lot of money in these elections, but the results show that they failed. And it failed because of the joint effort of the state institutions, of the media, of the press, of the civil society.
Moldova's pro-EU President Maia Sandu speaking there. Much then at stake for Russia in the Moldova elections, mostly a chance to foment discord and stoke its anti-EU message across the one-time Soviet state and boost its presence in Transnistria, the region where it's been stoking unrest since the late 1980s. Well, Moldova's people saw through the Russian messaging and voted to keep their country resolutely steered towards an integrated European future.
Hundreds of protesters gathered outside the parliament building in the Moldovan capital on Monday, members of the pro-Russian opposition party who lost in Sunday's vote. While police warned in advance that protesters were being paid to demonstrate, leaders of the pro-Moscow Patriot electoral bloc and their supporters have claimed without evidence that the results were rigged against them.
In our opinion, there was widespread fraud, especially at polling stations in the diaspora. The party already has evidence and will present it to the Electoral Commission.
The Patriotic Bloc lost by a sizable margin on Sunday, coming in second to the pro-EU party of Action and Solidarity, which secured 50% of the vote. And in fact, there are strong indications it was Russia who interfered in Moldova's election by posting disinformation online about President Maia Sandu, phoning in fake bomb threats at election sites, and by circulating false claims of vote rigging.
We have proof of the money that Russia spent or wanted to spend, and of course we have proof of attempts to bribe the voters in different regions of the country.
Claims the Kremlin denies.
Hundreds of thousands of Moldovans were deprived of the opportunity to vote on the territory of the Russian Federation as only 2 polling stations were opened for them.
Observers have called Sunday's election the most important in Moldova's recent history, as it could advance the country's bid to join the EU, a move that Russia strongly opposes.
On to you, Francis, with that look back at the election won by the pro-EU party of President Maia Sandu. Let's bring in Boris Najman, who is an associate professor of economy at the University of Paris-Est Créteil. Boris is a former advisor to the Ukrainian government, the cabinet ministry from 1994 to 1997. Boris Najman, thank you for being with us here in France Today. We appreciate your time. This result in the election, to put it in common parlance, this is really a kick in the pants for Moscow, isn't it?
Moscow invests a lot in this election because they want to block the export of grain from Ukraine going through Moldova in the Danube, and also because it's a first step of, let's say, major requested, the will of conquest, a new space for Russia in the region. So it was quite important for Russia to win this election, and it's a large defeat, effectively.
So basically, the way you speak of it, it's as though there is absolutely no doubt whatsoever that Russia is very much active and present in trying to shape what happens politically in Moldova.
You know, The method of Russia didn't change very much in all the intervention in elections. You have a sort of systematic similar way, so intervening first on social network, which is the lightest way, buying votes as another way, creating chaos, or creating this fake news, but also creating some chaos is a classical way of operating for Russia in elections. It's clearly, they didn't deny after it was so clear that some of the money spent in Moldova was aimed at trying to influence the election. This is something that is today in Russian politics totally transparent.
Boris, I had to put that to you because of Dmitry Peskov's clear words of denying what went on. It was good for you to actually explain to our viewers more and more the breakdown of how this actually happens. And it's really quite ingenious in many ways, the way Russia runs these operations. And of course, Transnistria, that stretch of territory which Moscow says is a place which there are Russian-speaking people, there are people who see themselves as Russian, and Moscow wants to help them. This is, again, another aspect of destabilizing Moldova on that same issue, isn't it?
Yeah. I mean, the playbook is that one, but also cutting the energy supply. And though this effect of cutting the energy supply create an increase in the price, which effectively create inflation in both in Moldova, but also in Transnistria. And this is a phenomenon, a classical phenomenon that we observed before in Ukraine, but also, a threat that was on Georgia and other countries. What I want to say here is that there was a large investigation done by Reuters journalists showing that priests in Moldova were paid to spread propaganda and also to influence the vote.
Priests were paid to spread propaganda?
Yeah.
That is
Orthodox priests.
It seems there's no aspect of life that Russia will not infiltrate in order to push that message. It's amazing.
Well, the Orthodox Church was regularly connected, with the FSB in a lot of former Soviet Union churches. Unfortunately, not necessarily at the low level, but rather at the high level of the control of the church. But this is something classical. This is something special. It was observed also in Ukraine. Unfortunately, you can see this kind of manipulation. I want to say something that is quite important for you. Russian propaganda, Russian way to operate is also always to play on, linguistic or religious difference, or, this kind of deterministic approach by categories. So they will put people once against the other in the same country by polarizing the situation.
And in terms of what Moldova hopes to gain from the European Union, how do you see things developing 5 years on, 10 years on, 15 years on? How do you see Moldova bearing fruit from that?
I think it's difficult to talk about that because, Hungary is blocking most of the accession countries to enter, including Ukraine, but also blocking the accession in the Balkan countries. And especially today for Moldova, it's a problem. Hungary inside EU is blocking. So now EU try to find a new process of accepting country without the 27 votes. I think it's good. However, at least to open chapters, of negotiation, which is very good. But at the end of the process, it's clear that we'll need the 27 country to agree for the entrance. And if Hungary is still blocking, this will undermine the enlargement for sure.
Boris Najman, thank you for that analysis of the situation in Moldova. The pro-EU party are winning the elections, but as Boris Najman points out, there is still a way to go before accession happens. Thanks again to Associate Professor of Economy at Université Paris-Est Créteil, Boris Najman, former advisor also to the Ukrainian government and the cabinet ministry from 1994 to 1996.